On my first day back from sick leave, my manager slammed my report down and said, "So you took a week off for a cold? Must be nice being dead weight." When I quietly said, "I had surgery," he snorted, "Not my problem. Either keep up or pack up." I watched him toss my work in the trash without reading it. That night, I forwarded one email I wasn't supposed to have seen. Now his office door stays closed. I've worked at this company for 6 years. It's not my dream job, but it pays decent and I've always liked the work itself. Data reports, audits, a little analysis here and there. Nothing fancy but steady. I'm the kind of person who keeps my head down. I show up on time, I meet deadlines, I don't cause problems. I'm not a star employee, but I'm not a slacker either. And until about 3 months ago, I thought that was enough. About 4 months ago, I started having some health problems. Stomach pain that kept getting worse until I finally saw a doctor. They found a growth, not cancer, thank God, but something that had to come out. The surgery wasn't major, but it wasn't nothing either. The recovery time was supposed to be a week, maybe 2. I felt guilty about it from the start. I hated the idea of missing work. So I called my manager, Greg, the second I got the surgery date. I even emailed him the doctor's note. He didn't say much. Just told me, "Make sure everything's caught up before you go." I thought that was fair. So I stayed late every night that week, making sure everything was up to date. I even wrote notes for the intern so he could run the weekly reports while I was out. I went into surgery on a Friday. I was back at my desk the following Monday. I'd used exactly 6 work days off. I felt like I was dragging myself around that morning. I hadn't slept much. Still sore. But I pushed through it. I even got in an hour early to finish a quarterly report that had been sitting on my desk. I double-checked every line. Ran every formula twice. Greg walked in around 9. He didn't even look at me when he passed. 10 minutes later, he came back and picked up the report from my desk. I thought he'd at least nod. Instead, he said loud enough that half the office could hear, "So you took a week off for a cold? Must be nice being dead weight." I froze. I felt my face burn. My hands started shaking just a little. I said, "Quiet, I had surgery." He gave this little snort like I was some kind of joke. "Not my problem. Either keep up or pack up." Then he dropped the report into the trash can right next to my desk. Like it was nothing. I didn't say anything. I just stared at the bin. For the rest of the day, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been punched in the gut. Not because of the insult, he did that to people all the time, but because I realized right then that it didn't matter how hard I worked, or that I'd stayed late, or that I'd shown up early still hurting. He didn't care. I was just another body to him. I stayed late again that night. Mostly because I didn't want to go home and sit with the way I felt. Around 8, the office was empty except for me and the cleaning crew. I was closing out some files when I noticed a folder on the shared drive. Q3 internal review. It wasn't there before. It wasn't password protected. I opened it without thinking. There was only one file inside, a string of forwarded emails between Greg and a vendor we'd stopped working with months ago. The messages were weird. I read them twice to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. Greg had been sending work to this vendor under the table. Nothing official. No contracts. Just little jobs here and there. Small payments, favors. Stuff that definitely wasn't approved. Stuff that could get him in real trouble if someone from compliance saw it. I sat there for a long time reading those emails over and over. My heart was pounding, but I wasn't even sure why at first. I didn't plan anything. I didn't even think it through. I just hit forward. I sent the email chain to the compliance officer. I didn't add a message. I didn't sign it. I just attached it and hit send. Then I packed up and went home. The next morning felt strange. Greg came in late. His face looked a little pale. He didn't make eye contact with anyone. Around 11, HR showed up at his office. They stayed in there for 2 hours with the door closed. When he finally came out, his face was red. He walked straight past my desk without looking at me. He didn't say a word. That was 3 weeks ago. His door's been closed almost every day since. Some mornings he doesn't show up at all. I've heard whispers. People saying there's an internal review going on. His name isn't on the company-wide emails anymore. I still come in on time. I still do my work. He hasn't said a word to me since that day. And I don't think he knows it was me. But even if he did, I don't think I'd care. The next week, things got worse at work. At first, it was just little things. The weekly team meeting happened without Greg. Someone from senior management ran it instead. People kept their heads down, pretending it was normal. But I caught the nervous looks between them. Everyone knew something was wrong. Then a memo went out, compliance policy review. Mandatory attendance. Greg's name wasn't even on the list. The same manager who ran the meeting gave the training. He spoke in that careful, slow way people do when they're walking on thin ice. After that, people started avoiding Greg's office altogether. Even the intern who used to fetch him coffee wouldn't go near his door. One afternoon, I stayed late again. Old habit by then. Around 7, I saw Greg walking through the office. He didn't know I was there. He stopped by the shared drive, stared at the folder marked Q3_internal_review, and just stood there for a long time. Then he deleted it. I watched him do it. It didn't matter. By then it was too late. I figured compliance had already pulled everything. But seeing him delete it like that felt strange. Almost sad. 2 days later, I got called into HR. I walked in thinking maybe they'd figured out I sent the email. My stomach was a knot. I kept telling myself I'd just tell the truth. But it wasn't about that. They asked me about Greg's behavior, how he treated staff, if I'd ever felt bullied or disrespected. They asked about that day when he threw my report away. They even mentioned my sick leave. I kept it honest. I didn't dress it up. I told them exactly what happened. Word for word. When I walked out, I realized what this really was. They weren't just looking at the vendor stuff. They were building a case. They wanted every piece they could get on him. That same afternoon, Greg walked past my desk. For the first time in weeks, he looked right at me. His eyes didn't have that smug look anymore. They were flat, tired. And then he said low, "You think you're safe now?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. After that, the mood in the office got darker. He started snapping at people again, but quieter, more careful. He nitpicked the intern's reports, called out mistakes in emails, but never face to face. He stopped joining meetings altogether. Then one morning I got an email from IT. Unusual login attempt detected on your account. My heart dropped. I went to the IT office right away. The guy there was nice, one of those quiet types. He showed me the logs. Someone had tried to access my account from Greg's office computer. Twice. Around midnight. IT said they locked Greg's account after that. I asked if I should be worried. The guy just said, "We're watching it." I went back to my desk and sat there for a long time. That sharp edge in me, the one that cracked open when Greg trashed my report, felt like steel now. This wasn't over. He knew it. And now so did I. A few days after the login attempt, I started getting strange emails. They weren't from Greg. They were anonymous. No subject lines. Just little one-liners like, "Watch your back. Some people don't know when to stop. Company rats get what's coming." At first I thought it was spam. But they came from a dummy account. One set up through a generic email service, nothing to trace. They always hit right after work hours. I printed them out and brought them straight to IT and HR. They took it seriously. Too seriously, maybe. HR called it potential harassment and told me they'd follow procedure. But that's when something else happened. The intern Mark, the same one who'd been too nervous to even speak around Greg, stopped by my desk one afternoon. He looked jittery, eyes darting around like he was scared to be seen. He said real low, "I think you should know. Greg's been asking around about you. Trying to find out if you're the one who sent those emails to compliance." I stared at him. "He said that." Mark nodded fast. "Not directly. But he's asking weird stuff. Like who stays late, who's close with HR. That kind of thing." I thanked him and didn't say more. That night, I sat in my car after work and realized something. Greg wasn't just trying to save his job. He wanted someone to blame. And if he couldn't find the real whistleblower, he'd make one up. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. The next morning, I got called into a private meeting. Not HR. Not compliance. Senior management. I thought this was it. I thought they were going to ask if I'd sent the email. But no. They offered me a promotion. Not huge, but a move up. A project lead position. Better pay. More responsibility. I sat there in that room with the offer letter in front of me trying to make sense of it. One of the senior managers said, "We've been watching how you handled yourself. You kept working. You didn't get involved in the noise. That matters here." I didn't know what to say. I still don't know if they knew I was the one who forwarded the emails. Maybe they didn't care. Maybe they did. I signed the offer. And that's when things twisted again. Greg's reaction wasn't what I expected. The day after the promotion got announced, he walked up to my desk. No one else was around. He leaned in, smiling. A strange, thin smile. "Smart move," he said. "Climb right over the body, huh?" I looked at him. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. And then he walked away. He didn't look angry. He looked impressed. Like I'd just played a game I didn't know I was part of. After Greg said that, About me climbing over the body, I couldn't stop thinking about it. For days I kept hearing his words in my head. I wasn't sure if it was a threat or if he actually respected me for standing up. Either way, it sat heavy. I kept my head down in my new role. Project lead. More reports, more meetings, more people looking to me for answers. I worked hard for it. But I won't lie, part of me knew this promotion happened because Greg went down. Because I sent that email. Maybe that's why I didn't feel proud. A week after my promotion, I learned from Mark, the intern, that Greg had cleaned out his office. No one made a big deal about it. No announcement. No goodbye party. He just left. I thought that would be the end of it. But I was wrong. 2 months later, I got a call at work. From a client I'd never spoken to. The man on the line said flat out, "I'm not comfortable with Greg being involved again." I felt my blood freeze. "Greg?" I said. "He doesn't work here anymore." The client laughed, cold. "Not here. With your contractor team. He's listed as a consultant." I hung up. My hands shook as I checked the files. There it was. One of our third-party contractors, the same vendor Greg used to funnel side deals to, had hired him as a consultant, and they were now working directly with my team. It felt like a punch in the gut. Greg wasn't just trying to save himself, he'd landed where he could still pull strings, still watch me, still keep a hand in the work I was doing. That night, I sat at home staring at my laptop, thinking about everything. How I'd kept quiet. How I'd taken the promotion and told myself I was better off just moving forward. And I realized something I didn't want to admit. Greg didn't fall because I sent that email. He slipped sideways, landed soft. Because I let him. Because I didn't follow through. I'd been scared of looking petty. Scared of making it personal. But Greg? He'd been making it personal since the day he called me dead weight. So I made a decision. I started digging. I pulled every old invoice. Every contract. Every signed document from our vendor's history with us. Anything with Greg's name on it. Anything that tied him to our accounts. And I found it. 6 months before he got caught, Greg signed off on a subcontractor invoice that billed double for the same work. A clear case of fraud, one that had quietly cost the company tens of thousands. I packaged it all. The emails, the contracts, the payment records. I didn't send it to compliance. I sent it straight to the legal department. Then I waited. It took 2 weeks. Greg got hit with a lawsuit. The company froze all payments to the vendor he worked for. They opened a formal investigation. He was named in the claim for financial misconduct. His name showed up in the industry newsletter under pending legal action. I heard through quiet channels that the vendor dropped him the same day the lawsuit went public. His consulting work dried up overnight. And this time there was no soft landing. I didn't gloat. I didn't even talk about it. But I sat at my desk and realized I'd learned something about myself. I wasn't proud of every choice I made. I wasn't proud that I stayed silent for so long, or that I let fear stop me from acting sooner. I let myself believe I had to play nice to stay safe. But in the end, I did what was right. And it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about making sure Greg couldn't do to anyone else what he did to me, and half the people in that office. I thought I'd feel powerful when it was over. But all I felt was quiet. And maybe that's better. Because Greg's office door? It's not just closed now. It's gone. And I'm still here.